The People's Platform.
Good evening and welcome to the show. What is the role of the arts and the artist in contributing to the overall development of society? Creative thinkers and makers provide communities with works of art, with inspiration. They also provide thoughtful critique to our social, political and economic structures, pushing communities to reflect, engage and take steps towards societal progress. My guest tonight is Dr. Rohan Nethsinghe, Professor in Music Education, also the Vice Chancellor of the University of Visual and Performing Arts. Good evening and welcome to the show, Professor.
Good evening, Sonali. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Wonderful to have you here with us in the studio and also in Sri Lanka, working at a state university. You have decades of experience working in Australia. So it's wonderful that you have come here to share your experiences with the Sri Lankan students. Professor, society prioritizes education in STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, but the world over, there has been a tendency to include arts also into this paradigm.
Yes.
Speak to us about this shift.
Right, that's a very good question, Sonali, and thank you for asking that question, because recently Honorable Cecile Premajantha, the Minister of Education, mentioned about the notion of STEAM and the importance of adopting it in Sri Lanka. Before that, I would like to describe what STEM is, because most of the people who deal with STEM, they don't know what STEM is.
Okay.
And of course, after that, the notion of STEAM and why it's there in place now.
Sure.
So STEM, Science, Technology, Engineering, which is written with a small e, and maths. That combination is there for a reason. About 20 years ago, at the East-West Center, I took part in this seminar in which they introduced STEM. And then I asked the question, something is very odd there. Why? Because you have a small e, and engineering is not a subject area.
Okay.
It's not a discipline, it's not a subject. So science is a subject, technology is a subject, engineering is a process or a job. Okay, an engineer is a person who works in engineering, so it's a job or a manufacturing process.
Right.
And then you have mathematics. So when I asked this question, they explained to me that in engineering, how science, technology and mathematics are used is the notion of STEM. Okay, so to manufacture something, you have to use science, technology and maths, for example, to make a bridge.
Right.
Right, so they have to measure and they have to know the science behind it, what type of metal you have to use and so on, and then how to use technology and to use mathematics to measure. But in that instant also, in that instance I said there is something missing, because when someone designs something or manufacture something, when someone manufactures something, the first thing that you have to do is design. So you have to have a piece of paper and you sketch. So it's maybe something that you visualize, it's a drawing, which means something that comes to your mind, you put it on paper, but that comes out as a drawing. After that, what you do is you look at the technology and the mathematics and the science behind it. Now, technology-wise, later on, for example, you can use AutoCAD to draw, let's say, a bridge.
Right.
Right, and then you can do the measurements with maths and, as I said, the science behind it, and then, of course, you give it to the draftsperson and the other people who are going to sort of plan everything so that the other people can build it. So the engineers are the people who design, and then of course they instruct the technicians, the manufacturers to manufacture. So when I explain that there is this missing part which is drawing or sketching, and that is the arts, that's where we started the notion of including the arts. And it's a long fight that we had to fight for. After about 15 years in the West, they understood the fact that the arts is an essential part in the process of manufacturing. So they added the letter A to represent the arts. So we call this movement, we called it steaming the STEM. So we have published a number of papers, and I'm glad to say that we were successful.
Right.
Now in the West, they are using the notion of STEAM, which is arts integration.
In the Sri Lankan context, we see that STEM is prioritized. However, the role of the arts to transform society is often undervalued.
It's neglected, marginalized. Yeah, that's something that for some reason that happens in the whole world. The arts are marginalized. However, now there is this notion of arts integration and integration of the arts.
Could you elaborate
yes,
on that?
let me explain about that. Arts integration means you integrate art forms. So let's take the 5 art forms that we have in the Australian curriculum, and they are in the Sri Lankan syllabus as well. So in performing arts, you have dance, music, drama, and then you have visual arts and media arts.
Okay.
So when you go to a concert, for example, let's say a musical like Lion King, you will see people performing on stage, right? So that's visual arts. But in the background, you will hear the music. So what you see there includes a lot of aspects. For example, the costumes, the makeup, the lighting. So lighting also visual arts. Okay, so you engage with different types of arts, and also a multisensory experience. You see, and then you hear, you listen. In some cases, they take you to the next level, and then you can have the next level, which is the 3D effect. So you can see things on screens as well. So that's the inclusion of technology there.
Sure.
You know about the ABBA concert that they had. They used the avatars. So that kind of thing. And then nowadays they go beyond that. So they, in that multisensory experience, use things like smell, to give people an authentic experience. So that's what you call the arts integration. So 5 forms of arts are integrated in that small example that I provided just now. And the next one is the integration of the arts, in which you integrate art forms in other subject areas.
Right.
So that's something that you always experience, but we take it for granted because we don't notice.
Okay.
Let's say when a doctor says to get ultrasound of your heart, what you do is you go to a hospital and they use a machine to scan your heart, right? Not scan. It's a device that, like a microphone, looks into the sound. So that sound is an element of music. The basic 2 elements of music is sound and silence.
Right.
And then of course the rhythmic patterns, and it goes on. But that device records or detects the sounds and silences. So then those are music elements. Then that is converted to a visual art image through a computer screen using technology. And there is a lot of science behind that, but I'm not going to talk about that aspect because it's complicated. But people who manufacture those devices, they know it. So that's a combination of music, visual arts, in order for a doctor to look into your body. So we don't understand or consider that as, using the arts in the process of medical diagnosis, right? When you have to do a diagnosis of something, you have to take a scan. So, for example, the ultrasound scans are based on that. And also, if you, let's say, do an X-ray, again you are looking at an image. It's just a black and white image that includes elements of visual arts, color, shades. Again, you are using the arts in that. So the interesting thing is we take that for granted, and we don't acknowledge the fact that you're using the arts in that process.
Sure. Thank you for this very comprehensive explanation. But Professor, from the theoretical aspects into the ground realities, where we have in Sri Lanka students who study the varying art forms, or students who after school become theatre actors, or artists, painters, singers, and are unemployed, or live from wage to wage, or from gig to gig, with no financial stability, with no understanding of what they are to do. This is a rampant issue in Sri Lanka, and it has been so for decades now.
Yes.
Why aren't we doing anything? What can we do? What must be done? What should the state do?
Sonali, that's a very good question. That ignorance is happening all over the world, not only in Sri Lanka, but in some countries they use the arts in various ways. Now, for example, Bollywood. I think Bollywood is bigger than Hollywood now, and they earn a lot of money because they have a strategy to promote the arts. Now, let me go back a little bit, because the arts is something that we use from the childhood, but we sort of stop engaging with the arts for different reasons. I'll give you an example. When a little baby is born, that baby responds to the sound of the parents singing, their voice, again an element of music, right? And those babies always start playing with different colored toys, right? And they do role play, playing in the playgrounds. You know, for example, they have this imaginary cars that they play with, dolls. You don't have to have something, you know, like a toy to play with your imagination. So people always do that. Now, for example, I learned the alphabet through a song, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Likewise, we use now music and lyrics for different things, right? What happens is later on when you start schooling, I think after kinder, when you go to primary, this is where this happens, especially in Sri Lanka. The teachers ask you to sit on a chair, not to move, because they restrict all the movements, and then you have to stop engaging with those fun activities. What you do is you learn letters and numbers. Is that the way that you started your life? No. If someone gives you like a newspaper with letters and a set of numbers, that's not how people learn. So the thing is, we have forgotten the fact that learning has to be fun. And then if you engage in activities that you are interested in, you will remember. And through that, I will go to the question that you asked. Now the arts has been neglected in the world. But if you have that background, in places like Japan, they give children 10,000 hours of training to engage in a discipline area that they have selected.
Right.
But in the beginning, when they were young, until year 5 or 6, what they do is they just, you know, engage with the arts and play around. They learn civics and citizenship. You know, they have all the freedom. And then only they put people into a frame so that they learn things like mathematics, technology, science, all the, you know, so-called important subject areas. And when you have that background, of course, they know the importance of the arts, and then people get jobs in that field. In Sri Lanka, just imagine, when I was young, my parents always wanted me to become a doctor or an engineer, not an artist, not a musician, but I ended up being a musician. Of course, they all were not happy. They were not happy because they said, yep, there are no jobs. But then again, there are different aspects that you can take. I'm a very strong researcher, and I ended up doing research, but in teacher training and creative arts education, focused on music. So the first thing that we have to do is, I think, in my opinion, give the correct place to the arts. The value of arts has to be recognized. And after that, definitely there will be a place for the arts, for the artists, for the people who teach arts, who engage in the arts, like in places like Hollywood, Bollywood, how they have created that. The industry, the arts industry, because there is a strong, I think, commitment, and then people value the arts, and there is a market. So you have to create that market through valuing the arts.
And Professor, how do we connect this with state responsibility towards ensuring this?
I think it's really important to start with the school children, and of course you have to educate the parents as well, and you have to acknowledge the fact that, as I said, the arts people are in these jobs where people design things. Okay, so the fact that, let's say, in Sirasa, you have a lot of people who work in the arts, even though they operate computers, they do work in the arts, and they have a background in the arts. And also, let's say, in medicine, like images that they take, that I mentioned before, are related to the arts. So if you acknowledge that fact, that arts are being used in many areas and there are jobs related to the arts, then people will start valuing the arts.
I'd like to get your opinion on the fact that art is essential for the physical, emotional and mental well-being, the therapeutic, cathartic role of the arts. People in this capitalistic society wake up, go to work, pay bills, come home, and it's a vicious cycle. There has to be something more to life than a mundane existence, sans meaning and purpose. So what is this role of the arts, and how must we infuse that into our lives?
Right. Thank you again for that very important question. I think in Sri Lanka, we have that traditional background to use the arts in therapeutic ways.
Okay.
So I'll come back to this one in a moment, because during the COVID time, the whole world was in a lockdown for 2 years. And I think you may have seen what they did with the arts during the lockdown. They had online performances, and even in Sri Lanka I saw some musicians performing in front of houses, the flats, and entertaining people. So through the arts, during the COVID time, I think people had a lot of benefits to relieve their stress, the loneliness. So coming back to Sri Lanka, for thousands of years, we have been doing that practice as a tradition. We had things like Shanti Karma, and that's an interesting practice that we still have in Sri Lanka. The sound of drums, the smell of oil lamps and the coconut leaves, kokola. So, and when you perform this Shanti Karma in the paddy fields, you get this natural relief of stress. that's really therapeutic. Now in the West, they have things like arts therapy, music therapy, visual art therapy, drama therapy, dance therapy, you name it.
Yeah.
All these things are there.
Yeah.
But in Sri Lanka, traditionally for thousands of years, we had that, these Shanti karmas as something that was recognized by the society as something that works. So that's why I think we are very rich and we can continue that process. However, we unfortunately forget our roots and we think, all the modern technology and the modern ways of living is better than what we had before, but that's not the case. If you look at the West, people are turning back to the old ways of doing things, especially in Australia, where you have Aboriginal people, and now the so-called Caucasians that we have. I don't like to use these, ethnicities. However, these people are turning back to people who had this huge traditional knowledge in order to find the wisdom and also the simplicity of life.
In post-conflict Sri Lanka, given the fact that Sri Lanka has gone through a multitude of conflicts and we haven't as a society healed adequately, how can art forms be used as a healing methodology in peace building and reconciliation, as a bridge builder between communities?
Yeah, thank you. Again, it's a, I think, very timely question, because today at our university in the morning we had a Pongal ceremony, Thai Pongal ceremony. And we invited students and the director of Swami Vipulananda in Batticaloa to come and do a Pongal performance for us along with our students, and it was really, I think, interesting and successful because we had very good feedback from our visitors that we consider as our relatives. Because Pongal is about celebrating, the sun god and prosperity that's related to agriculture. However, they also include the third day of Pongal or the fourth day is about sharing milk rice with their relatives. So that's one thing. We can use the arts for reconciliation. I know Sri Lankan artists like Nanda Malini has been using music and people have written lyrics. And I also did that while I was in Australia in 2006 in an Independence Day concert. I composed music for a song that was sung in 3 languages, Eka Arutaka, Sinhala, Tamil and English. I think that has been used in many places in overseas countries where Sri Lankan diaspora lives. So those are the things that we can do. However, we are doing not enough. I mean, through the arts we can do a lot. As an initiative, we invited people to come and perform with us from Batticaloa, and they are really good artists and they really love the arts. So through the arts you can heal the world. Now, as you can remember, there was a concert called Live Aid, and they collected a lot of money through a series of concerts, right, to help people. Michael Jackson had a number of songs like Heal the World. So I think in the world arena also music has been used but not sufficiently. You can use the other art forms as well, definitely. For example, dance, drama, and visual arts can be used for such activities. So I think it's quite important to use a subject or a medium like arts that has the capacity for people to relax and do communal activities together, which will strengthen their friendships, and also I think it affects on their well-being and mental health as well.
All right. Dr. Rohan Nethsinghe, thank you very much for sharing your perspectives. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sonali, for the opportunity.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow. Good night.